Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the new Shul and to the third event of this amazing Kumah festival, which was bringing art and faith and politics. And this is an evening organized by the Black Lives Matter Chavuta, and I will explain what a Chavuta is in just a minute. For those of you who don't know me, which is like basically everyone, I am a Rabbi Misha's wife, but for the few of you who know me, he is my husband. I'm really excited to see there's really a bunch of you who I just adore. Where is my husband? There he is. Hi. And I'm really excited to meet those of you who I don't know. Thank you for having me introduce this to the BLM Chavuta. So in Judaism, Shabbat is our day of rest. It starts Friday evening and it ends Saturday evening. And it's this sacred time that we are commanded to stop working, to turn off our phones, to stop the to-do lists, And we focus on getting present. So tonight we're offering a really special Shabbat. It's where we're focusing on rest, repair, and bodily autonomy. And it is inspired by the amazing women who run Black Women's Blueprint. We salute you. And I just also want to say hello to the Zoom. I can't really see you, but I think I saw my 96-year-old grandmother's iPad name on there, so that's very exciting. Okay, so I promised to explain what chavruta is. And another fun fact is that in our ancient text, the Torah, we're meant to study and pull it apart, examine it, interpret it. And this studying is meant to happen in groups. So an idea or principle or something that you're thinking about, you can't do it all by yourself. You've got to work it through with other people. And so at the new Shul, one of the things that we're doing is we've broken up into small groups to study ideas, to study ancient texts, to study current events, but we're doing it together in groups. And so tonight, this event is put together by people who've been working in this Black Lives Matter study group that's been meeting for the better part of 2 years, every single week. And the group came together to learn more deeply about history, to learn about the repair that needs to happen, and how to support Black liberation in this country. So why is the Black Lives Matter Chavruta focusing on rest as its kind of culminating event? And so for me, it started with the pandemic. There was a lot of obviously pain and grief that we all went through in isolation, and I don't mean to minimize that with my words, but I remember March 2020, and I remember being sick. Misha and I were both sick, and the kids were home, and we thought it was 2 weeks, and then it was 6 weeks, and everything was kind of overwhelming. And our work, I have some of my former work colleagues here, our work was upside down. It was a really awful, difficult time, but there was this lurking thought of, thank God it has all stopped. I just needed everything to stop. It was incredible. It was this secret, incredible feeling I had. And I felt that I needed everything to stop so I could observe myself, and so that I could allow myself to change. So tonight we're going to move through a really exciting program. We have poetry and song and a lot of discussions around bodily autonomy and land repair that we need to do. So we're going to have all of those conversations. And the members of the Black Lives Matter Chavruta are inviting you to think about how rest, real, radical rest, can allow you to observe yourself, to observe your neighbors, and to observe what's actually happening around you, which we are not doing, and really pay attention so that we can make the changes that we need to make in our midst. So that is where we're at with rest and what we're going to be talking about tonight. And this is just some of what I've learned from these incredible women at Black Women's Blueprint. They have spent more than a decade foregrounding a blueprint for the liberation of Black women, women and girls. It's grounded in truth and reconciliation, and they inspired this gathering. And so at the end of the night, I'll make another promise, which I will share more about their work. Okay, so just one last thing before we get moving. When we chose tonight's date, which we chose 3 dates, we had 80 COVID dates before this that we canceled. So, when we got to May, it was the last possible day we're gonna do this. And we didn't know that this week would be what this week would be. So holding this event in the midst of this utterly earth-shaking, mind-boggling, enraging time, with this assault on bodily autonomy and on the dignity of all of us who are going to be choosing our own destinies and be the agents of our own bodies, it was pretty earth-shaking to realize that this was happening tonight. I've been pregnant twice in my life, with one of my pregnancies being exceptionally complicated and requiring a very tragic medical intervention in the middle of it. And both times that I've been pregnant, even with the excitement and the love and the joy and the fear and all the swelling, everything was happening, the thing that stood out to me most was this incredible sense of privacy. That I was creating this internal universe inside me and that it was private and beautiful. And so, needless to say, it's been a week. And with that in mind, I return to the fact that if we're going to wait to rest when all the work is done, when all is right in the world, we're never going to do it. So for those of you who need to shake something off in order to be present, please do that right now. And we'll continue to give you opportunities to do that through the night. I'm really thankful that you're all here. And I just want to say one more thing about the music. Hi, Ramsey. The music tonight, the New Shul is used to like a lot of instruments, and tonight we're here with Judy Williams, and we're just going to hear her voice. And that's something new as well, and exciting, and I hope will allow you to maybe hear something new in yourself as well. So thank you, Judy, for being here. All right, so to start our evening, we're going to light the candles. And I'm going to invite Dr. Ya Elombe and Dr. Pei Desrosiers from Black Women's Blueprint to help me light the candles. And just as we move on to that, so that's over there in the corner, we're going to do that together. We're going to recite the prayer together. We have a big job. We've, with this evening, we've feminized the prayer for tonight on the candles. So it'll sound a little different. But just as we move over there, Dr. Pei, would you like to share your proverb?
There's an African proverb that says that each time I walk and make the journey to my friend's home, the path becomes shorter. It is my prayer that today, that as we come to visit you and as you have an opportunity to visit us, that the path becomes shorter. Bless you.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, להדליק נר של שבת.
Do you want to stand?
No, I want the music stand.
Hello. Hi. My name is Avia. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah. Cool. It's easier not to have to hold the microphone for me. I'm an almost lifelong member of the Shul. And tonight I'm going to lead an inward turn so we can all be with ourselves and be with the community. I have some notes here. And before we start, as Erica acknowledged, thank you, Erica. In this inward turn, we're sitting here with the news of this week and maybe taking a moment to feel where that sits in your body and hopefully finding a moment of respite and a moment of rest. Great, so to start, I'll invite you all to find a comfortable and grounded seat. And what that means for me is to become aware of the weight of my body in my seat against my chair, to feel my feet on the ground, almost on the earth. I like to find contact with my hands on my legs. Perhaps maybe like your hands folded resonates more. And then if it helps you find a more internal place, I invite you to close your eyes. And as we bring an internal awareness to our bodies, we can also become more aware of our breath, of this very subtle pattern that moves your body subconsciously. And as we start to feel, hopefully, a little bit more aware of what is happening inside our bodies, this is us bringing ourselves into this moment, in with each other, into this rest, this moment of sacred rest that we all need and are not all afforded. And in this, we can start to build a home for ourselves in our own bodies. So I'll invite you all now to join me in making a simple gesture. If you need to open your eyes, you may. So I'm placing one hand palm up in front of my navel, and then the other hand also palm up, resting on top of the bottom hand, like so, if you can see. And this gesture, one hand on top of the other, we can simultaneously hold ourselves in one hand and be held in the other. What is this sensation of holding and being held? Does it bring up any emotions, any thoughts? And as we experience being held, we can ask ourselves, who are the ancestors and communities that hold you, that guide you, and that allow you rest? Is it your direct lineage, a lineage of chosen ancestors, community or movement leaders? Who holds you and allows you to rest? And then as we experience this sensation of holding in the other hand, we can ask, what kind of ancestors do we want to be? Can we be the connection between the legacies and traditions that have held us so that we can hold those who follow us? I'm just going to take a deep breath with that. And in this sensation, I also feel that I bring awareness to this gift that I can give myself of caretaking and rest. And also bring awareness to the ways that I can share that with others. And then, as we bring this internal practice to a close, I hope we feel a little bit more present with yourselves, with this community, and I hope that we feel rest. Thank you. Take some moments to come out of that if you'd like.
Can folks take a look at their sheets? Do Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShamayim. Did I mess it up? Malachei Elon, Melech Malachei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. La 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 la. Malachei Elyon. Thank you, Judy. I'm up next. Sylvie.
Gets to put in.
Next. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming this evening. And Erica said it so well. And Anavia took us even further, and Judy's taking us further and further. But we, those of us who organized this evening, inspired by and dedicated to Black Women's Blueprint, we're looking to see how we could reach into our own lives, what was meaningful to us in the mission of Black Women's Blueprint, and what our personal relationships were with one another who were organizing the evening, and what our relationships to the outer world were that were resonant with Black Women's Blueprint. And so this evening I have the amazing good fortune to be sitting right next to Sylvie Blaustein. Sylvie is a midwife, but she's not just any midwife in my life. Sylvie helped bring my 2 children into the world. Cyrus, who's here, is 28, and Sylvie was at the time working with the doctor that I was seeing, and so she accompanied me with the doctor, and then once she let me know that she could be with me without the doctor for the next child, Avia was born with Sylvie, and we just had a reunion tonight, earlier in the evening. Avia, who was up here before, is 25 years old, sorry to out everybody's age. But she met Sylvie tonight for the first time since she was born. Yeah, so it's really super moving. And there's so many things to say about Sylvie, but you just have to look at Sylvie. So, I mean, Sylvie's soul and spirit just come shining through her smile and her eyes. We've had a few good cries getting back together, talking about things that are important to us, and I definitely need my glasses to go on. But I just want to tell you a little bit about Sylvie beyond my own personal great good fortune. Sylvie has worked as a midwife at North Central Bronx Hospital. Beth Israel was a part of the New York Presbyterian Columbia faculty practice and founded her own practice, Midwifery of Manhattan, which she ran for 14 years. For many years, she accompanied a great number of Hasidic women and families through the generations, and as she explained, was thus the grateful recipient of a challah almost every Friday. She spent her last years practicing in Paterson, New Jersey at St. Joseph's Hospital, where she cared primarily for women of color, teenagers, and documented and undocumented immigrants. Welcome, Sylvie, to the new Shul. My heart is beating in my chest. So this is a most auspicious and tumultuous week, and we have been saying, painful for us to live through, and we didn't know, as Erica said, that the timing would be thus. We are here to speak about reproductive justice, bodily autonomy, the right to choose, and the right to be treated with dignity, respect. And that we could live in a world where everyone has access to the kind of care, the level of concern, respect, et cetera, that Sylvie showed me and showed all the women and families that she accompanied. And with the imminent reversal of Roe, this dream just moves further away to be able to share that kind of support and care, but we won't give up. So we were emailing this week about this, and you emailed me this quote, I will quote you. Our country is the most dangerous country in the developed world to give birth, and now is putting those who choose not to continue a pregnancy in grave danger as well. It is just devastating. So, establishing a baseline of the human right to choose to have a baby, and the great disparity of care in this country between people of color and those who are white. Okay, I just wanted one statistic you sent me, sorry. You sent me statistics that in the state of New York, Black women are 5 times more likely to die of pregnancy-related causes than white women. So we can just hold that statistic. But with all of this difficulty and complexity aside, I just wanted to invite you to begin simply by telling us what it was like to bring babies into the world for over 30 years.
Thank you, Maya, for inviting me, and thank you everyone for the incredibly warm welcome. And Lizzie, I got to be with her when she had her baby as well, so that's an extra bonus tonight. Well, and being a midwife, it's been the greatest blessing for me to be with women and families at the most sacred and intimate time of their lives, and to try to create an environment of safety and respect and love. It's just been the greatest joy and greatest honor. In thinking about tonight and thinking about rest, which isn't something we think about all that often, the image that came to my mind was labor is really, really hard work. And when women talk to me about, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? Sorry, I hope you could hear me. I would say don't think about the 36 hours of labor. Just think about one contraction at a time. And after each contraction, there's going to be 2 or 3 minutes of rest. So really, really enjoy the rest, because the work is coming up next. And you can't do the whole 20 hours without thinking about that rest. So I think the image of having a time in your week or in your day to stop and to replenish so that the work can be done. I really, really loved Misha's email today about, how is it that we can possibly rest when there's so many horrors going on in our world? And just sitting there and being overwhelmed doesn't change anything. So having time to rest, to rejuvenate, to recover so that you can do the work that needs to be done is so critical. Yes, bringing babies, helping women bring babies into the world it's a miracle. I mean, to get to go to work and be a part of a miracle, and the great joy, the relief, the joy, the exhilaration that women feel after hours and hours of really, really hard work is exhilarating and joyous for the midwife as well. Midwifery is all about creating a sacred space, about creating a place where the laboring woman can feel safe and trust her body, because our bodies are made for giving birth, and when supported and allowed, when that process is allowed to take its own time and in its own way, most of the time things go really well. And that doesn't mean that things can't go terribly wrong at times, but women are strong, women are powerful, women are resilient, and being around birthing women is spectacular.
Thank you, Sylvie. The very first thing you said to me about yourself in the context of this evening was, my parents having been Holocaust survivors, I think I was drawn to renewal and life and birth and women's health so dramatically. And then I had my first child with a midwife, and it was like, boom, this is what I have to do. I don't like the cliche of it being a calling, but this is what it felt like, and I loved being a midwife. Can you talk with us about this, your lineage and the transgenerational trauma you experienced, which allowed you, I believe, to better understand trauma present in other people with histories different from your own? You told me so many stories. If you could share some of those.
So, as Maya said, my parents were Holocaust survivors, and I grew up in a home that did not talk about the Holocaust, but it was always there. And it shows up in my life in ways that are unexpected. I revealed to Maya, this is a really sad story, but I revealed to Maya that when I hear the word shower, I immediately have the image of Jews being taken to showers where they were murdered. And it's just there, and it's just a millisecond, and I can, as my husband used to tell our kids when they woke up having nightmares, he said, just change the channel. So I try to change the channel because I don't want to live in that spot. But that kind of trauma that gets passed down, even if it isn't specifically verbalized, is powerful. People would say, don't eat the bread before dinner because you're not going to have any appetite for the meal. And my father always said, no, eat the bread. You never know what's going to happen next. And that, unfortunately, is something that I think about a lot. And being with women who've been survivors of abuse or poverty, Black women who have the history of enslavement, trying to be in there with them and to try to be as respectful of each individual's experience is also what midwifery is about, to look at each individual woman and her story, her struggles, her wishes, her hopes. It's hard. It's hard. People have complicated, difficult lives, and being present for that and supporting people in every way that you can is something that midwifery prides itself in doing.
Thank you. So we talked about, what is the role of the midwife, and something you kept saying to me, which I really noted, was who owns this experience. That was something you kept referring to in terms of the medical system and women birthing, caught up in that. Can you just talk a little bit about this, who owns this experience?
So historically, midwives were who delivered babies, and in the 1800s, midwifery, birthing became medicalized. And the experience not only got taken away from midwives, it got taken away from women. So the medical vision of birth, and there's doctors that I love and there's midwives that I don't, so I'm not trying to say that every midwife is a saint and every doctor isn't, and midwives can't do their work without the support of obstetricians. But the medicalization of birth is a normal process. Yes, things can absolutely go wrong, but it is a normal part of a woman's life. And the medicalization of that, starting IVs, putting monitors on women's bellies for hours and hours, not allowing them to change position and move around, is just not what's natural to women giving birth. And it's much more natural to be squatting. Women do not want to stand still in labor. So all the rules, midwives have really fought against those sort of rules. Routine episiotomy, where you cut an opening in the woman's vagina. Now, 30 years later, now the doctors say, oh, you really don't need to cut an episiotomy. And we're like, yeah, we talked about that 30 years ago. But it's becoming more, not every woman needs a C-section. Yeah, no kidding, we know that. So the medicalization of birth, is really heartbreaking, and then the medicalization, healers and midwives used to also perform abortions in the 1800s, and that became medicalized, and it needs to be because things can absolutely go wrong. But the idea that a woman's bodily autonomy is being put into question, or not put into question, being really taken away from us, is it's sort of part of the whole power, removal of power, removal of autonomy from women.
Can you tell us why it was important for you to end your career, which you did only recently? And there's bios of all of our amazing guests in your programs. Why for you to end with the women and what you wanted to bring to them first?
So I started my career working in the South Bronx in an underserved community, and it's sort of where I learned how to be, and ended also working with impoverished women, immigrants. I also had my own practice for a huge joy for their midwives. And because it was a private practice, we had the luxury of giving the kind of care we really wanted to give. So we scheduled an hour for visits, where often your visits are 5 or 10 or 15 minutes if you're lucky. So with couches in the office so women could sit down and have their family with them, their children with them. And we were able to spend that kind of time to really, really learn about this woman and what her fears were and what her dreams were and what her, the home she was going to go back to. So it was a real joy. Eventually closed that practice, and as you said, I wanted to end my career going back to where I started, which is working with women who live in really difficult conditions. And I knew the women that I took care of in my private practice were ultimately going to be okay. They might need to go into therapy because they experienced trauma during their births, but they had the resources to do that, and I wanted to work with women who didn't have the resources. And it's not easy because in a practice like that, you're lucky if you have 15 minutes with a woman. So you have to really listen quickly and look intently and intensely at the person in front of you because you don't have a lot of time to do that. So it's both incredibly gratifying and difficult at the same time. Towards the end of my job there, we started a program called Centering. The reason we got a grant because the complications for Black women in childbirth were so high in New Jersey that there was a grant to try to lower those horrific statistics. And one of the things that's been shown to get better outcomes is centering pregnancy, which is group prenatal care. And what that is that instead of a provider sort of talking at the person, it's the community learning from each other. And because it's 2 hours long and you get your checkup, you get all the physical parts that last 5 minutes, but then you get the support from people within your own community. So a woman that might, think that breastfeeding is nasty talks to another woman who says, oh, no, it's the most wonderful thing. But me telling them doesn't have the same power. So community care in that way, community health workers that go into the community, the idea of much more postpartum care. We're the only developed country that doesn't have home visits after birth. My daughter is actually a midwife in New Zealand, and women get 8 visits after they deliver. I mean, nobody gets that here unless you have a lot of money and can pay for it. So it was incredibly rewarding work in Patterson, and I'm glad that's where I ended my career.
So last question, what must we do in this country to make it better? We talked about a couple things. It was before the Roe week, but
I mean, that's just a giant question. I mean, there are so many inequities in our society: housing, education, violence, lack of fresh food, lack of sidewalks in many neighborhoods. So, I mean, the issues are huge. But one piece of it, is nationalizing healthcare, because taking profit out of healthcare is essential. I think that's incredibly important. More midwives. Only 10% of babies in this country are delivered by midwives, where in the countries where the statistics are so much better, it's 50 or 60 or 70%. So training more midwives, training more healthcare workers of color, so the community has role models and has more respectful care.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvie.
Oh, the doctors in my birthing life. Thank you very much. It is my delightful pleasure to transition us and invite someone who I love. Where is she, Erica? Is she hiding? There she is. Okay, please welcome poet, therapist, restorative justice practitioner, my teacher, my friend, Erica Wright, who's here from St. Louis. So please welcome her to New York. That's for the Zoom.
Oh,
You want this?
okay. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, take it down.
Is it okay? We're okay.
So I haven't done this in a while. So when I talked to Erica about this theme of rest and restoration and healing, I was like, maybe I should write something new. And I tried, and I worked on a couple of different things, and nothing really came together. And so I started to think about my own work, my own journey to healing. And for me, initially, when I first started writing poetry, I started writing when I was a child, but it would be about things that I saw in the world, and it was never connected to myself. And so when I first moved to New York, I was in the throes of my healing journey, but New York is a place that can be very isolatory, but it makes you look at yourself, it makes you face yourself. And so I started to write, to like really go inward and begin to write about my life and like my own journey to healing, and I started to see myself throughout this journey. So I'm going to share two pieces. The first is called Family Ghost. Okay.
Can we hear, or do you want the mic?
Mic. Okay. This is called Family Ghost. If at our time of birth, we were assigned surnames to reflect our family's histories and future state of being, I would have been called broken. For I'm finding that no matter how much I desire to break this curse, there is no way for me to fly free being born in this family. My family is full of ghosts. Our souls attached to this world and can seem to let go of all the things that haunt us the most, constantly giving birth to our whispered fears. We bore no children here, just our pain bearing human names, while we stay close to the shadows that lurk in the dark as pink elephants fill the room. We don't talk about the pain because then it becomes real. Because then we have to acknowledge how each other feels. So like ghosts, we stay close to the shadows, our color never taking its proper hue. But what should it? When I can clearly see right through you, for I lived your life too, dear mama. I think the doctors cut the umbilical cord before it could transfer more than your trauma. I can't seem to escape this dark place, and you don't have to say, but I know you lived there too when mine was molded from you. How many times have you told me, baby girl, no matter where in the world you go, you pack yourself with you. So I fill these metaphorical suitcases with all the things that makes my heart break, and this pain is such a heavy lift, so I feel it every time my back aches. This has become the physical manifestation of my stress as my emotions search for its escape. I take me wherever I go. And even in a room full of people, my ghost is shell-shocked, see-through in the shadows of social awkwardness, because I'm hoping they can't see through you to get to me. I wear my family's legacy of abandonment like a coat of armor. If your parents don't want you, then you can go to an aunt, or your grandmother will take you in and shh, be quiet. Never give name to the mental dis-ease that begins to sink in once you realize that you are unwanted. Sit in silence with your pain as your brain sit in silence with your pain as the mental angst begins to rewire your brain into depression. Mama, I'm trying to break free, but these black holes that once shielded me are constantly calling me home. They require me to have frequent bouts of time spent alone, where my suicidal ideations are free to roam, and my ghosts of past homes taught me of all the things that used to be and the family that would never be made whole again. How can I stand up to them when I'm constantly walking amongst them? I see that you never even recognize yours, or perhaps it was much easier to suffer behind closed doors, and I know that my visible battle challenges you a little bit more than you may like it to. Am I too much of a reminder for you? Do I trigger memories of a childhood that you've tried to put behind you? Sometimes we carry so much pain that we give birth to it as a way to regain us. So I hope that your sacrifice of giving me life gave you freedom and broke your curse. But I know that's not how things work, so you continue to suffer along your surname, silence, while I attempt to mend broken pieces. I hope that neither of us takes this to our grave, and I'm standing here before you today, hoping that my courage to give voice to my deepest pain will encourage you to do the same. Dear Mama, I need you to do the same, so that your ghost can release my ghost from your pain. Signed, our family surname, Promise. This next piece is called Running, and it just, like I said, just kind of further. If you look in my bio, like I'm originally from St. Louis, but I spent half of my life in a bunch of other places, and then I had to realize that I was running away from myself, and so this piece was when I realized what I was doing, and also I had a moment. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I was sitting in bed. And I had always felt like I was detached from my spirit. And literally it was like, I don't even know, I was just laying in bed and I could hear something whisper to me like, I never left you. And so I wrote this piece about that. I've spent my whole life running away from myself. I never wanted to be my mother's burden or my father's daughter, so in turn I learned to be nothing to myself. Be like air and flow freely so that no one can see me, invisible. I don't even recognize my own reflection. Who is this girl staring back at me, asking all these questions? I don't want to see you. Disappear, be gone, be ghost, be nobody, be tears cried silently at night when no one can hear you pleading for death, wondering why hasn't it embraced me yet? Am I not good enough for you either? I curse the day of my birth. Wondering why Madeline wasn't Brenda, who had a baby and wrapped her in a blanket and threw her in a trash heap, only to sleep permanently, and never having to know the burdens of this world that I would carry with me while no one held me, shielded me, saw me, made room for my pain, struck my worries to sleep, so I became nobody to me, but sensitive to everyone around me, as if what emotions I couldn't feel for myself, I felt for everyone else. While on the inside, I was a wintry death or a stagnant summer breath, breathing recycled air. I felt all the seasons move within you, an empath, extending grace to everyone around me except for me. My spirit detached from my physical body long, long ago, and I have not been right, searching for homes away from home, away from me. This is how I learned to survive. I learned to run and run and run to the edges of the earth, but always ended up back at the same place because there is no escape from yourself. But still, I ran. Running was the only defense mechanism I knew. Loving self, making peace with self, are skills that must be taught to you or you will struggle through. And peace was nothing more than treaties signed in my history books, not personal declarations that you made with yourself, because peace and self-hate can occupy the same space. You can't heal the person you don't see. And ghosts are real in God's absence when you can't even feel your own presence. So I found things to placate the sadness. Material possessions became band-aids for life lessons, and I learned a lot of them, like I always thought that love would trap me instead of setting me free. So while I'm a great friend, a lover is something I never learned to be. I never trusted my own heart, so how could I hold yours as my responsibility? Please, don't ask too many emotions of me. I only know how to love you with things. Giving my heart required a higher degree of vulnerability that I felt would break my hold of a detachment wide open, and I lose control and love takes over. But love has never been my shoulder to cry on, just an empty emotion that I could never rely on. So I don't know how to love you that when my inner me has always been my enemy. But now I'm relearning what love means, and that healing is not always easy or pretty, and the road to forgiveness does not always feel good. But unlocking all three have been the keys to allow me to finally see me. So when I had this conversation in my mind, my spirit whispered how she never left me, as my heart laughed and said, it's nice that we all three finally get to meet, for you are now free to be free. So stop, sit, breathe, and release. Thank you.
I love spoken word. I used to write it when I was in high school, and now I don't, and I was sick. That was really sick. So I'm going to sing Change is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. I think it starts with I Was Born. I thought it just seemed like a really fitting song in light of all that's happening and the theme of tonight. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know. Can I start over? Sorry. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change's gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change's gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. So I go to my brother. I say, brother, help me please. But then he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there were times when I thought I wouldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
So as we heard and experienced, the Black Women's Blueprint compelled us to explore themes of rest and repair, how the gifts of our ancestors enrich and embolden our lives, and how safety, dignity, and autonomy of our physical bodies is at the core of it all. We were also inspired by a key tenet of Black Women's Blueprint, the connection to the land, to the earth, to the soil. And this brought us back to our tradition, our ancestors, and our Torah. In the Torah, we are mandated to observe Shemitah, which is literally the seventh for every seventh year, or the Shabbat of the land. It's a year for the land to lie fallow, for the land to rest and repair, and also a year to forgive all debts. In fact, today, May 6th, the year 2022, we are right in the middle of the year of Shemitah. So we're so fortunate to have with us tonight Liz Ashleman, who we came across a piece that she recently wrote about Shemitah that was both radical and rational, with specific ways to bring the intention of Shemitah into our lives. Liz has graciously agreed to join us, all the way from Boston, to share her vision about the transformative power of Shemitah.
Hi, everyone. I'm too used to being tall, I have to perch. Oh, what a beautiful evening. I'm feeling like slow and soaring, and I hope you are too. And Erica kind of gave away the whole thing at the end of her last poem when she said, stop, sit, breathe, and release. That's Shemitah. So as we've been talking about, as the other Erica said at the beginning of the night, in Jewish tradition, we get Shabbat, this amazing gift, every seventh day. The commandment to stop working, to rest, to remember that our lives and labors depend on the gifts of a much larger creation. But fewer people know that the seventh year, the Torah declares a Shabbat, Shabbaton, a Sabbath of Sabbaths, a year-long sabbatical for the land and its people. And this year, as Sylvia said, is a Shemitah year, a year of release. That's what it means, literally, release. The Jewish people have been counting cycles of 7 years for generations. And so here we are, midway through a Sabbath of Sabbaths. So what does that mean? What does that look like? I want you to imagine that you're a farmer, and it's year 1 of the Shemitah cycle. Everything is normal. You plant your fields, you bring in the harvest, you sell your surplus, and you prosper. Year 2, you plant, harvest, sell. Year 3, the same. Your profits are growing. You hire more workers. Things are looking good. Year 4, plant, harvest, sell. You loan money to a neighbor whose harvests have not been as large. Year 5, again, you have more than enough, but your neighbor continues to struggle and take on more debt. Year 6, you know the Shemitah year is coming, and so in preparation, you save a little extra, you bring your surplus harvest to the communal storehouses. And then it's year 7, the Shemitah year. The year of release has arrived. You don't plant your fields, they lie fallow. You gather only what grows on the ground, grows on its own. Grain that has sprouted from last year's fallen seeds, fruit and olives that come every year. When you walk past a fig tree, you can reach up and pick one and eat it without wondering whose property it grows on. In a Shemitah year, the produce of the earth has no owner. The Shemitah year is a lean year, a year when everyone must stretch their meals and rely on each other and on communal storehouses, but you've prepared well. And at the end of the year, all debts are canceled. Your neighbor no longer owes you money. The cycle is complete. Year 1 begins again with a clean slate. There is no evidence that the Jewish people have ever fully practiced Shemitah. It's a high bar. Don't plan anything, don't eat. And release all debts. That's a big ask. So, as is our tradition, loopholes, legal overwriting, we've really worked around it. But we still have this beautiful, beautiful, radical idea and this vision of Shemitah. And I think it's a radical inheritance for us from our tradition that we need now more than ever. So here's why I need Shemitah. On my mother's side, my family followed a familiar Eastern European Ashkenazi trajectory. My great-grandparents fled military conscription and violence in Russia and came to this country with very little. They worked as factory workers, painters, seamstresses. They made ends meet and sent my grandparents to free public high school right down the street, to heavily subsidized nursing and medical school. My grandparents, the doctor and the nurse, bought a house in a white neighborhood and began to grow their wealth. They sent all 3 children to college and supplied the down payments on their homes. My mother earned a PhD and invested the extra money that she had in the stock market. And through boom and bust and boom, the money grew. Wealth made more wealth. And I came into the world on a wave of gifts and inherited opportunities I did not earn. Private school, private college without loans, the down payment eventually on my own home. And really the freedom and security of knowing I would always have enough to be okay. In 2018, the top 10% of families ranked by household wealth owned 77% of the wealth pie. The bottom half of families ranked by household wealth owned only 1% of the pie. In relative terms, $77 are split comfortably among 10 people, while 50 people share just $1. The life that I was born into, through no choice or merit of my own, with a lot of help from someone like Sylvie, has put me solidly among the top 10%. All of my needs are met and more, while nearby, more than half of all people in the country struggle to sustain themselves and their families. But I see and I feel the harm of a world that does not value people enough to make sure their basic needs are met. I see the cost of a country built on stolen land and stolen labor that still works people to death. I see how a society that views some people as disposable ultimately views all people as disposable. And I feel the pain of our disconnection from each other, of the productivity treadmill that never lets us rest. I see the effects of this endless extraction on our planet, and despite my wealth and privilege, I know my life would be better in a world that values all life, that delights in rest and play, that encourages giving over taking, that farms and builds and creates in a way that regenerates and nourishes. As the organization Movement Generation says in their Just Transition primer, an economy based on extracting from a finite system faster than the capacity of the system to regenerate will eventually come to an end, either through collapse or through our own intentional reorganization. Transition is inevitable, justice is not. So to do my little part in this just transition and move towards a world of cooperation and caring, I have to lovingly transform the ways scarcity and extraction and fear have seeped into my very being. And I have to release the excess wealth that I hold and move it towards repairing harm and investing in the well-being of all. So what I love about Shemitah, this year of release, is that it demands and it teaches both how to release our resources and how to take the values of interdependence, abundance, and trust more deeply into our bodies and souls. So tonight, as we explore the theme of rest and the invitation to support the powerful vision of the Black Women's Blueprint, we're going to spend a little bit of time exploring some of Shemitah's radical claims and invitations. First, abundance. Shemitah reminds us there is enough to go around. Second, gift. What we have always comes from somewhere else. third, reset. By mandating the cancellation of debt, Shemitah resets the economy and keeps the gulf between rich and poor from expanding. And finally, release. We have inherited a beautiful, transformative vision of sharing our collective resources that is a release for all of us. The first lesson of Shemitah, abundance. There is enough to go around. During the Shemitah year, the land lies fallow, and we eat only what has already been stored or what grows without intervention from the land. The rabbinic oral tradition imagines a system of storehouses in which people bring their excess harvest to the storehouse and receive a distribution on the eve of Shabbat, every person according to the need of their household. At the heart of the rabbi's vision is a radical claim. There is enough to go around if only we would share it. There's enough to go around if only we would share it. Economic research backs this up. There is enough food, water, energy, and housing space for every person on the planet. Unequal distribution is the reason millions of people around the world are chronically undernourished, and hundreds of thousands of people experience homelessness in the US each night. For those of us with more than our fair share, it's often our feelings of scarcity that keep us from bringing our metaphorical harvest to the storehouse for redistribution. As someone with more than enough, I certainly have those feelings. The generational trauma I've inherited tells me that I may need to pick up and run at any moment, that my safety may depend on my wealth. But how much is enough to be safe is a really slippery slope. The more we have, the more we think we'll need to be okay. But the Shemitah year challenges us to move through that scarcity, fear, and guilt. The Shemitah year reminds me that my well-being depends on my neighbors and community far more than on my bank account. And it demands that I act not from the hypothetical worst thing that could possibly happen, but from the recognition of my abundance. There's enough to go around. Recognizing abundance is a muscle. I feel abundance when I sit around the Shabbat table with friends and family, when I wake up to light streaming through the windows and settle into a sunny patch with a good book, when I pull on my favorite sweatshirt for the 1000th time. So I'd like to invite you to think about what helps you feel grounded in the abundance of enough. For the next 3 minutes, I'd invite you to turn to your neighbor, preferably someone you didn't come with, introduce yourself, and share about a time you felt a sense of abundance. And when we're ready to come back, Judy is going to help me sing a nigun, so please join in. conversation is abundant. Welcome back. Thank you. So I'd love to hear from one or two people. What's something that you shared about a moment or a thing in your life that makes you feel a sense of abundance?
It was strange to try and figure out if we're talking about monetary abundance or fulfillment, you know? You kind of like, oh, we're playing for money, so
Yeah, others. Yes.
Well, my friend said when she comes home from Costco, and I thought to myself the same thing when I come home from the hard self co-op.
For people who didn't hear, when they come home from Costco. I love that. Great, maybe one more.
Janice was sharing how, thank you. She was sharing the abundance of her daughter, having her daughter, and looking at you, you brought that to her, and how the young generation is really embracing life from a different perspective. They're keeping it simple, they're keeping it no meat, and they're conscious about the environment, and how she worked hard, and she, the fulfillment, as she said, is not even there for her, but her daughter is her abundance.
Can I add something? I really want to add something. I felt an incredible sense of abundance. Just it's okay. We'll fix it. It's okay. You can talk. I can talk. I can talk. All right. I felt an incredible sense of abundance listening to you, because as she was saying, you reminded me so much not only of my daughter, but of my own story. My grandparents left Russia like yours. My mother and father became a doctor and nurse, like people in your family. I have, on my own, developed a life of great abundance. And your values, as you're expressing them, remind me so much of my daughter, who can't be here tonight. And I know she's going to miss every minute of this. But I love the way you shared all this and told the story as it goes down. You know, I said to my dear friend Shauna this year that I wanted to take a sabbatical because I'm in the 5th of 7 years. And I think she said to me, you know, it's hard to take a sabbatical because when you leave, it's hard to come back. And so there's a lot of fear attached to a sabbatical. And I didn't know that it was part of my Jewish culture. I just thought it was my working woman culture. And somehow in what you were saying, there was an element of courage and faith. Because I've done all this, and I'm sure that I could do something more.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. So, as we share our resources, as we sit together around food, as we bring home our groceries from Costco, let's remind ourselves of that kavanah, of this intention that there is enough for all of us. The second lesson of Shemitah, gift. Shemitah income is ownerless. During the Shemitah year, all that grows from the land is considered hefker, the Hebrew word for ownerless. According to the Torah commentator Rashi, any produce of the 7th year must be equally accessible to the owner of the land, the worker, and those who dwell in the land. Medieval philosopher Maimonides goes a step further, adjuring people not to lock their gates of their fields or take more than they need into their homes. Thus, everyone, rich and poor, has equal rights in every place, he wrote. Beneath this teaching of ownerlessness is the teaching of gift. Everything we have comes from and ultimately belongs to something or someone beyond us. Who made the land? Who caused the rain to fall? Who taught us to plow the fields? So much of what I have can be traced back to a gift. From the land, from my ancestors, from this body I've been given, from mentors and teachers, from discoverers and road builders and activists who paved my way. Indigenous botanist and author Robin Wall Kimmerer writes, "Gifts from the earth or from each other establish a particular relationship, an obligation of sorts to give, to receive, and to reciprocate. That is the fundamental nature of gifts. They move, and their value increases with their passage. The more something is shared, the greater its value becomes." So one more question for you to consider. What gifts have you received that have contributed to who you are and where you are today? I'll pause and let you think. We're not going to share on this one, but take a moment to think. What gifts have you received that have contributed to who you are and where you are today? Hold those gifts and their givers in mind. So what would it be like to view our income or even our wealth not only as a gift, but as ownerless, equally the right of anyone to use? This is scary to contemplate, deeply at odds with our society's beliefs and with the tattered social safety net that largely expects individuals to take care of themselves in hard times. But just contemplating the idea that maybe all of this has no owner, even when it's under my roof or in my name, loosens my grip on the idea that what I've earned is mine and is reflective of some absolute value of my efforts. Money has accumulated in the bank and stock accounts of a few, and our job is simply to unlock the gates that guard it. We can unlock the gates by moving our money to social movements and organizations that fight for a fair economy and justice for all, to organizations building refuges of interdependence and care, to efforts to return stolen land to Native people, or take reparative action for the theft and violence of slavery, or simply to individuals who need it. And however much is in our bank accounts or not, we can organize, putting our time and energy in service of those same goals. One area that maps neatly onto the concept of ownerless harvests is the stock market, a field into which we sow seeds of capital and reap the harvests, often with no labor of our own. While the stock market rises and falls over time, most years investors can count on growth of about 5 to 7%. Over the pandemic, the market hit record highs, tripling those usual gains. In this Shemitah year, I encourage those of us with money in the stock market to count all growth in these accounts as ownerless and redistribute at least 5%. I'm committed to doing that myself. Thanks for the snacks. The third lesson of Shemitah, reset. We are commanded in the Shemitah year to release all loans. It says so in the Torah. In contemporary times, this may seem impossibly complicated, as our debts tend to come from distant institutions and not from our neighbors. However, people have devised ingenious ways to contribute to funds that buy off and then expunge often predatory medical and educational debt. Organizations like the Brooklyn Bail Fund release people who can't pay bail from the financial bonds of the deeply racist bail system. And in addition to these actual debts out there in the world, it's a really ripe time to lean into the economic reset of Shemitah. During Shemitah, poverty is relieved as debts are erased, and the wealthy are forced to pause in their accumulation. Imagine that this economic reset had taken place regularly since the founding of this country, with debts erased and wealth accumulation paused every 7 years. We would live in such a different place. Today, movements towards economic models rooted in racial and economic justice, collective ownership, and regenerative relationships with land are flourishing. In this Shemitah year, we can move money from accounts aimed solely at growing profits towards a vision of abundance and economic agency for all by investing in worker cooperatives, mutual aid networks, and Black and Brown-owned businesses. And finally, release. As Jews, we inherit a beautiful legacy of sharing collective resources. We inherit Shabbat meals in which abundance was coaxed from a handful of vegetables, and someone with less was invited to share. We inherit the tradition of the community Kumah, a collective fund gathered to help those in need anonymously. And we inherit the radical vision of Shemitah, a vision of abundance that resets our relationship to land and our relationships to each other, cultivating interdependence, releasing debt, and reminding us that all we harvest is a gift. Shemitah releases all of us, rich, poor, in between. It is a transformative rest, a radical act of trust that forces us to depend on each other and to recognize our dependence on the earth and all that is sacred. And it is a material reset that invites us into an abundance we receive not by hoarding, but by releasing our resources in service of a world where we all have what we need. So on the stone that you received a few minutes ago, this beautiful stone, we invite you to write a word or a phrase that represents a gift that has moved through you, a gift you've received. It could be physical, it could be psychological or spiritual, anything that reminds you of this abundance, this gift. And as you do, think about the source of that gift, where it came from, who offered it to you. And then once you've marked this stone with your offering, your word, we invite you to take this stone home as a reminder of our evening together, or to keep the gift circling by placing it somewhere outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, so much. I'm shorter than Liz. I have to reassess. Thank you so much, Liz, for that. And it really tees us up. I promised that I would tell you about Black Women's Blueprint. They have been working for a very long time to honor the voices of Black women in this country, and they're with ancestry and with the past. Oh, should I fix that? Sorry. The mask. This is terrible. Thank you, Jonathan. You think better? How's this? Better? It's my sister. We've talked about the bodies, we've talked about the land, and we're gonna move into the final piece. But I want to say we're going to be following up with you in the next, in about a week or so, you'll be hearing from us. And we want to reach out to this brilliant community, and we want you to hear what Liz has said and take it into your hearts when we reach out to you. Because what we would like to do is support Restore Forward, which is an actual retreat center. I'm getting the nods. I'm really happy that you're here. It's 300 acres of land in upstate New York, where they're building a community called Restore Forward, where there's going to be retreat, mental health services, storytelling, matriarchal village. Do you want to share it? You're welcome to come. Farming, learning, healing. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but you can come if you'd like. Dr. Yaz on the board, and please tell us a little bit about Restore Forward. Thank you.
Greeting all. Thank you for having me here. It has been a very moving evening for me. Restore Forward, we began the journey in February of 2020, right? 2020, so before anything happened. And the vision is to be steward of the land, okay? And we are looking forward to having a facility for restoring the mind, body, and soul. We want to have a matriarch village. We want to have medicinal plant, and we also gifting 20 acres of the land, to the Native American, the Hodusa. So we're planning a lot of facility where we can integrate with the area and provide solidarity economic. We want to have husbandry, and we're going to be planting. Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So our mantra for this evening is we can't rest until everyone rests. We'll be reaching out to the four corners of this community to provide this support to this amazing vision of Black Women's Blueprint for rest and healing and reconciliation. I just want to say on behalf of the New Shul how honored we are to have you here tonight. And please, those of you who want to join our Chavruta, we're small and mighty, so just come join us as we learn and we unlearn a lot of things. I'm going to pass the mic. Misha, are you here? I'm here. I'm going to pass the mic to Rabbi Misha for the Kaddish.
Shabbat Shalom. I mostly just want to say a few words of thanks before we chant the Kaddish together and say the blessing for the wine and the challah. But a few people I want to thank for this beautiful evening. First of all, Erica, since you handed me the mic, thank you. Thank you for taking on this role this evening so beautifully that I was telling Sophie reminded me of our wedding. Pardon me. But Erica played a big part. I'm going to thank all of the members of this Chavruta who really did wonderful work. But I just want to say, Erica, that it means so much that you brought your work into this community, that you brought your the people that you know, and you know all of your restorative justice world and soul into this evening. So thank you so much. I want to thank all the people who participated in this event. Judy, thank you so much. Thank you. Erica, where's Erica? Erica Wright, thank you. Liz, where's Liz? Thank you, Liz. Sylvia, thank you so much. And then I want to thank each of the members of this group that put together this evening tonight. Sylvia and Maya and Via and Pam and Claire too, who was on some of those Zooms. So thank you so much. And I want to say that this evening was very, very new Shul in the way that and very, very Kumah in the way that it brought together the political and the artistic and the faith worlds. And really, it was very, very moving on those fronts. But to me, the most political thing that happened this evening had to do with the community and the way the community got activated in order to create this event and to activate us in this room. Audre Lorde said that there is no liberation without community. So this event makes me feel liberated. My greatest hope for the Shul is that it becomes a place where the members of the Shul start taking action and bringing things together and teaching us. I personally learned so much this evening, including about how to put together such a beautiful evening. So thank you so much for teaching us and for creating community in this beautiful way. We're going to turn to the Kaddish, and I'm going to ask you all to please rise. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to pass my gaze around the room, and if there's anybody who has passed, who is no longer with us, traditionally we think of people who died during this time of year or people who died in the last year, but this evening I'd like to invite you to bring into the space anybody who you wish were here, who you're thinking of, who you'd like to bring into the space. And when my gaze reaches anywhere near your general direction, please speak their names.
Lydia George, Carlton Troutman.
Linda Moskowitz.
Vidal de Rosier.
Dr. George Duffy.
Auntie Doris.
Frederick Schwartz.
Martin Clemens and Walter Kraft. Odessa and Mark.
Rebecca Adler.
Paris Linsky.
Emily Owen.
Judy Benzer. Lucia Gasowski. Heidi Brand.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Martin Muller.
One more, sorry, Rebecca Winters.
Reva Bloomberg Lenman. And you can speak the words with me if you know them, or just hum your voice to participate. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תברך חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, ויצמח בורקני, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריך הוא לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. Please be seated.
There's a little wine in here. Whoever knows it, you want to sing along? Yeah. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei keri hagafel. Before we do the motzi, one last thank you to the women from Black Women's Blueprint. Thank you for inspiring this evening. Let's say the bracha for the motzi as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Judy, I turn it back to you. You got one more? Challah, you can eat too.
No, bird. I caught that. I'm a Mets fan. Okay. So we're gonna close with Adon Olam. I think I've told this story before, but I'm a convert, very proud. I'm a Jew by choice. And one of the songs that I loved the most when I was Catholic is "How Great Thou Art." If you've read the words, it doesn't like work for the Jewish people. So I worked with Misha, and I just ended up putting the tune to "How Great Thou Art" to Adon Olam. So that's how we got here. All right, so jump in, please, at the chorus. You'll sing with me, please. All right. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, בטרם כל יציר נברא, להתנשא בחץ כל עשי מלך, שמו נקרא ויחרב ככלות הכל לבדו. ימלוך נורא, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, להתנשא בחץ כל עשי מלך, שמו נקרא והוא אחד, ואין שני להמשילו, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמזרח, והוא אלי, וחי גורלי, וצור חבלי, ביצרה, והוא ניסי, ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי, ביום אקרא. אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, להתנשא בחץ כל עשי מלך, שמו נקרא בידו, הפקיד רוחי בהיתי שם, ואירה, ואם רוחי גבי
this part of the evening, please hang out, please eat, please drink. Jewish people like to drink. We're gonna have a lot of drinks. Hang out on the porch. We're really happy to be here with you. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to everyone. Thanks to everyone on Zoom. We love you. We miss you.